Yikes. Hey guys, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Let us fix this. And here we go. Hey everybody, let's restart. It's Tuesday, not Thursday.
And welcome to this week's edition of Hook, Line, and Striker.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And that was kind of a crazy start, so thanks for bearing with us.
Well, this is going to be kind of a crazy show.
Well, and with that, there are just some times where things go a little bit crazy, and that's just what happens. So, this week, that we forgot it was Thursday. We lined up our other show on accident. Honestly, I didn't flip my calendar page. So you have us here tonight, which is going to be an awesome time actually, because we're going to take this opportunity to, go and talk a little bit about some of this summer gear that, all of these different other Striker Pro staff have talked about knowing and loving and using out on the water. But then also we are going to talk some fishing here and, some panfish techniques because, we talked to a lot of people, walleye, bass, all that great stuff. They're all great fish, but we're going to sneak in a little bit more panfish these days. So with that, we do start out usually with a fishing report, but I'm also interested in how fishing is for you guys. So, what are you fishing for? What are your water temperatures or what are you using and are fish biting? Between last weekend and this weekend, I don't know. I was going to say things were going to be consistent. That's not even true. We have humidity setting in and all this crazy stuff. So, we'll see what kind of changes happen. With that, what is our fishing report for the week? Where are we at?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's just been kind of warm. We got a little bit of a cold front. Hey, Goose, how's it going? We had a little bit of a cool front last weekend. We traveled around. So, I mean, we had one day at home and one day almost in Iowa. And, it was kind of crazy. So
that is a really great point. We had the pleasure of kind of traveling to go fishing. So on Saturday, we were, southwest of Madison, even, I think. And so you can go and look at our fishing report if you want more information on where that is specifically. But we had a really stellar day of fishing. Like, seriously, we caught a ton of panfish. So
yeah, we were out there with Pat Kelmerton. He does the blackfish stuff. And he was out there, and I think he lined up the fish for us. I think he corralled them up. And then he was putting on like the ugliest baits he could. And then he's like, "Why don't you guys try something else?" And then they were like on the surface. It was super fun and easy.
But Josh was making a great observation that the fish were near the surface of the water. So there were some times that we'd see these little splashes going along. And, you kind of just have to assume that it's minnows getting chased by maybe small bass or something, because that happens so often this time of the year. But as you got closer and, we were using our trolling motor, maybe floating with the wind, you kind of ease your way in and you see, you're not spooking these fish off because you're going kind of quiet, but you ease your way in and you can see that it was a bunch of smaller bluegills that were up right at the surface of the water. So it wasn't even minnows splashing. It was these bluegills and kind of their top fins as they were at the top of the water. So why is that?
Well, it was mixed sizes too. I mean, it wasn't just small ones, but their backs were sitting out of the water, probably about that far. And they're just sitting there. And the funny part is it was in 20 feet of water.
It was over
brush. So the brush came up about 5 feet off the bottom, 7 feet off the bottom. But those fish were all the way at the top of the water. And what we kind of figured happened was we had some really bad windstorms, a few tornadoes blow through the week prior, end of last week. And that wind really got the water mixed up. And that's just the water temp they preferred. So they were sitting on top. It was clear blue skies. It was 9-10 o'clock in the morning, and these fish were right on top. There was bass jumping around chasing them. There was crappies on top. So it was just a temperature thing, I think. And that's where the bait was, and that's where the bigger fish were.
Well, and the way that we were looking at temperature is certainly on our graphs for the surface temp. That's super easy to, be aware of consistently as you're fishing. But we were able to then use our AquaView. And then in the bottom of the screen, it also gives you a pretty accurate view of temperature. So as you're putting that camera down through that water column, you're able to see, if there's a change and where that change happens. Because first of all, when it's very stark versus when it's very mixed up, the fish will be doing different things. And like Josh is saying, in this case, that water temp was a little bit more mixed up. It was a little bit more similar throughout. And even think about things that it throws the bait into different places. If fish are, looking for bugs, if they're looking for leeches, if they're looking for whatever that is, all of those different parts of the habitat will be definitely affected by that water change.
Yeah, and the thermocline is so important. Just it's related to oxygen, and so right where the cold water meets the warmer surface water, that's going to be the most oxygenated water, because once you get up to the top, it loses oxygen holding capacity because it's too warm. Once you go below that, then you're not getting the mixing and the air to water contact to get oxygen. So right there in the middle where that cold water is hitting the warm water, it's a cool zone, and that's where fish like to hang out. And that's why they're suspended in the summertime, is because there's not very much oxygen at the bottom of the lake right now until we have fall turnover. So we got some people checking in. How's it going, Anthony? Steve Schaefer, Shotgun Chef. Bigger gills in deep water right now. He says they're on their second spawn. I believe it. They can do 2 or maybe 3 in a season. So, out by Steve, southeast part of the state, could be going on right now.
And I definitely have seen bigger gills in deeper water. So I at least have to agree with the first part of that, because I've experienced that. Tony also checking in. Haven't been out in the boat the last 2 weeks, but looks like he's pulling the ice house yesterday. It's got to count for something. Absolutely, it does. Absolutely. That's something that I'm hoping to get to a little bit later in the show, is, hinting a little bit at ice season, because it is this time of the year. I don't know how many times I've said to Josh now, I wish it was ice season.
Yeah, she's sick of being stuck in the boat with me, so she wants to go wander to the water by herself.
Well, that's not even true. But we were talking about something as simple as the AquaView, and putting that camera down, and it's such a user-friendly thing. I unfortunately, like to go and look into that deep brush, and putting that camera down there or looking at cribs, when there is too many waves and stuff, that does get a little bit crazy. And so, I do miss that ice season where you can just stand on that flat ice and put that camera in any precise spot that you're looking at.
Yeah, it is a lot more fun to use the camera in the wintertime. The fish are moving slower. Can maneuver the camera a little bit better. They even have a tripod AquaView sells with the motor in it, so it can spin. You can micro adjust it, so it is a lot more fun to use in the wintertime.
Well, and while we are still talking about the camera, we did actually use that as well on Sunday, because we did then fish closer to home. So we were talking about a fishing report that was not local to our house, but in this case, we did also fish around here as well. And what did we find? Well,
we found fish pretty much in the same spot as down in the southwest part of the state. The exception was that they weren't grouped there, right? So they were moving around. They were feeding actively. In this particular lake, they were chasing minnows, and so you could pick off 2 or 3 fish off of a brush pile, and then you stop getting bites. You put the camera down there, and there was maybe 1 or 2 little bluegills like this big, and then you'd move to the next one, and they'd move, and you could go all the way down and then come all the way back and just follow them all the way back and forth along that shoreline.
With that, though, that was the onset of the cold front. So, Sunday was a lovely day to be on the boat, just as somebody enjoying the outdoors. Fishing, we honestly had to work a little bit harder than what we did on Saturday. But I don't know if it's the wind calming down a little bit or what it was, but into the evening, the fishing definitely picked up. It made it really hard to go home at the end of the day, especially knowing that work was the next day. So not sure if everyone has that problem, but it makes it hard.
Yeah, it does.
Awesome. So we are here talking about all kinds of things. If you guys have gear questions, if you have fishing questions, if you have whatever it is, add that into the comment box, because we would love to be here to talk about that.
Yep.
So while we are here, we're talking about fishing in all of these deep locations, looking for these other panfish out there. So what do people use for, or what do you use for bait?
Well, most people that know me know that I'm a plastics guy, and that's mostly out of necessity of laziness. I don't like keeping live bait alive. It's hard. I have plenty of other things to do: driving the boat, trying to fish 3 rods here in Wisconsin. No, but seriously, I like having the plastics. I have a whole duffel bag full of them, and well, probably 2 duffel bags full of plastics. It's kind of an easy way to collect tackle without spending a giant amount of money, but you can turn something like a jig head or even a bare hook into multiple different lures. So you don't need a whole lot of gear to do different tactics. You can use plastics on drop shots. You can use plastics on jigs, bobbers. You can troll with them on jig heads. You can do all kinds of stuff. So if you can think of it, you can create it with plastics, and that's what I use.
So that is really awesome that you have a ton of plastics. And I would say I have, a medium amount, way less than Josh, because he is a collector.
And she steals mine.
But when we look at the different baits, there's a certain, different profiles that if you are looking to get into plastics, we are looking at things like a minnow profile. So something, and I always think of light and dark, white, you can never beat white. I don't care what profile it is, get some white. And then like purple seems to be super great for me for a dark color. So I go for something that's a little bit, can I call it a candy color that you can see through a little bit? Like I don't want a super opaque purple, but I like that darker purple profile.
Yeah, so color really has to do a lot with time of day, the weather you're fishing, and the color of your water. And I would say it really goes in that order as far as priority. Time of day, the weather you're fishing, and color of your water. Because there's a lot of places where you can go and you can fish white all over the place. Okay, because if you think about it, the underside of any bait fish is white. Almost always. It's white or silver. And that's what fish see. They see up or they see out, and they can see that white profile. And we like to use that in bright conditions because that causes a shadow. And it is hard for the fish to pick out what exactly it is, but the silhouette makes it look like food. Dark days, dark colors. Those things work for us because our water is clear.
That's true.
I came from central Minnesota. I fished a lot of my youth there. Green water. You can't see 2 feet into it by the time June hits. And so it's chartreuse. It's bright orange, bright yellow. All those colors worked really good over there. And then you would use stuff like black and blue and stuff like that when you needed to get more of a shadow effect. So, it really just depends on that kind of stuff.
And this is why Josh has a million more plastics than I do, because like he's saying, he is right. You do need chartreuse. These different tools in your toolbox are going to help you catch fish. But on some days, like I'm saying, I could be happy with just really white and purple. So we were, throw that in. Goose.
So our buddy Goose, you can see by his picture there, he catches crappies by the fistful. He fishes by the Twin Cities, and he says pearl is a good color, but white, it doesn't work as well for him. It's more of the pearl. So that's one of those differences that it does make a big.
Well, and once you get to know your fish, that helps you to be able to kind of pinpoint the tackle that you are getting. But we kind of were looking at, if you get something that is a minnow profile, and if you get something that is a bug profile, that is going to get you a really long way. Because one of the things about plastics is, you can pinch off parts of bodies. If there's too many legs, you can take that off. And sometimes just using those baits in those different ways can really even expand your bait box as it is. You get one plastic, but you can rip it into 3 different shapes or something. That's kind of funny. But also then take note of the lakes, the fords that you have there, because, if you are, bass fishing or even sometimes crappies, will eat small little crayfish. So if you need like a tube that really imitates crayfish sometimes or something, they sell crayfish baits, that's out there. Otherwise, something that's very leachy, get something that's like black. That's a very common forage. And a leach plastic can be a lot of fun because, bluegills eat that. Crappies eat that. Walleyes eat that. You never quite know. Maybe a bass eats that, depending on the size jig and then the plastic that you add to it.
Well, and don't be afraid to reach out or seek out some of these hand pouring bait companies that are on Facebook. Emily and I work with Extreme Plastics and IJO Plastics. Both of those are in our boat. We dabble in a tiny little bit of it ourselves, just playing with colors. But there's stuff like 1.5 inch frogs. When you're talking about mimicking a crayfish, if you hook that up to a jig with the legs hanging off the back and you fish it on a bottom, the legs wiggle around and then it drops to the bottom. And that's just a mini bass trailer, like a crayfish trailer to a perch.
Right.
So get a little frog in orange. You would never think about that, but that could be a little crayfish bait. So, just reach out. A lot of these guys on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, they have a lot of experience, a lot of them. They can make whatever color you want.
Well, and if you guys have a favorite bait, I'm interested in hearing what that is. Drop that in the comments, if it's a maker, if it's a type, if it's a specific color, you have, a secret, maybe you have a secret scent blend. That would be so cool. Let us know that. With that, I got to say, I don't tend to use any specific scent on my bait. So sometimes they'll come with like an anise scent on it. And I do, like to use that sometimes. I think that fish kind of love garlic. You never know.
Well, and I mean something as simple as scent, you can add whatever you want. There's essential oils at Hobby Lobby in the soap section. We put cherry on yours.
It's true.
When we make the little just testing out colors for our soap. I like to add the lure lipstick soft bait enhancer to mine.
Could be.
I got that from BAC up in Marinette.
Yeah, BAC Guide Service. Shout out to you because big walleyes up there makes me wish it was spring. Gotta have ice first.
But you can always add those to bot baits too. Even though if they come a little oily, you can always add your own sets. And like she said, garlic's an easy one. You can take a
you can just garlic powder.
Yeah, just sprinkle a little garlic powder in with your baits, and it'll be fine. Do not use olive oil. That'll harden up your baits. Don't ask me how I know that.
Steve Schaefer is checking in with black and white beetle spins. They're money in any lake for every species. Hey, you know what? I gotta agree on that too, Steve. You're bringing up some great points tonight. But the thing about that is you are, match the hatch. That is the bait fish. That is what's out there. So bass will eat that. Crappies will eat that. Maybe a big bluegill eats that. I mean, you never know. Walleyes will eat that. There's a lot of great stuff in that lake out there.
So our buddy Matt has a hard question for Emily.
Oh my gosh. If you had to pick just one lure to fish year round, ice and open water, all species, what it would be? Okay. Like oh gosh, I would like to say a 16-ounce jig, but that's maybe a little bit big for ice season. So go down to a 32nd, a nice lead. Falls a little bit slower than tungsten. I love tungsten jigs, but just I'm thinking of a little plastic something with like a little wiggle tail. I don't know, because sometimes a wiggle tail could be like a bug or a minnow. So if I had to choose a color, orange.
Orange.
We haven't even talked about orange yet. Gosh, I learned at an ice expo one time that orange, especially in ice season, like if a fish for whatever reason were to, spit back up the food that it was eating, what that comes out as is oftentimes kind of a gross orange color. But fish recognize that as a super easy meal. And so fish oftentimes will go and capitalize on that and go and eat that up really quick. So when you throw something down that is, whether it's bright orange or really light washout orange, depending on your water quality, man, that really, you can catch a lot of fish on that.
Well, so my answer to that question, and this is going to surprise Emily because I barely ever do it. But my answer to that question would be either a number 6 or a number 4 Aberdeen hook with a
A
white
worm.
plastic.
Oh, okay.
You know, it can probably something like a, it's the little mini mites that you can get in the store. I use the whipworms from Extreme Plastics. You use the nummy tails from IJL, something like that.
Trailers.
And the reason I say that, and this is why it's going to be surprising, is you can Texas rig that in the winter and in the summer. So you can take and you can adjust the speed at which it falls. You can either let it be neutral and just sit there, because a lot of those plastics are floating or neutrally buoyant. So just with the little weight of the hook, it'll just kind of sit there underneath the water. Or you can change it by adding different size split shots. So then you can change it into different, you can get it to deeper, you can change its fall rate. That's what I would use.
That's really cool. Every fish will just bite a hook and a worm, or a hook and a whatever that forage is. So that's actually, that's almost back to basics. But if you had to fish with one thing all the time, that's awesome. The cool thing about both these applications is if you are out there, if you're jigging, if you're casting, you can put both of those things under a bobber and go out with your kids. So that's really nice. If you can really capitalize on one, whatever you're putting out the end of your line, whether that is a jig and plastic or a jig and worm, apply that to the different applications that you're fishing. If it's jigging, if it's bobbers, if it's whatever, because then you start to learn the patterns and the habits of those fish of the waters that you're fishing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're going to catch up on some comments here. Our buddy Goose says he likes to rub some Billy Rub, the freshwater shrimp, on his plastics that aren't scented. So I'm not familiar with that, but it might be worth, looking on his picture there, it might be worth trying that out.
There you go.
Matt, it was a tough question, but that's okay. We like tough questions, especially Emily. She loves tough questions.
Well, and that's the thing is, sometimes you get in habits of switching it up all the time, trying new things, trying to catch new fish, but sometimes you get stuck in a rut and you do use the same thing all the time.
Matt? No, I don't. Can you tell?
There's a constant debate about how much beard Josh should or shouldn't have, because
no, it's not a debate.
It's not a debate, because I would never tell him what to do, but I just think that shorter is nice,
It's gonna be winter in like 4 months.
Yeah, that's why you have striker gear, to keep you warm.
They don't make a face beard.
Yes, kind of they do.
No, it's a mask.
Face beard.
Okay. Gold Jig Classic. 13 Fishing, the Dude Jig, Impulse Water Flea, Panfish, Pirate, Ripper. Ooh, that's a good combo for sure.
Well, and kind of
Thanks,
a nice
Tony.
Range there. So, some good things to go and look up.
And gold is always a good color to have in your tackle box, whether it's, your Aberdeen hooks, your jigs, all that. It's just something nice and shiny and natural that fish just like to come up and look at.
Well, and talk about something that you can leave on the end of your line for as long as you want. I went almost an entire ice season once with just literally a gold tungsten tied on. Any plastic that you put on that, a worm, a spike, whatever that is, you will catch fish. I did not even ever have to change. No need.
So we got another one, Go Deep. Yeah, that's definitely something to check out. And even if you're, if you don't need super fancy electronics, if you just drive around with whatever small fish finder you have, or even just bring your Vexilar out in the boat and just hang it off over the side. I know Matt Johnson from Clam and Vexilar. He runs his Vexilar right off the bow of his boat. It's attached to his trolling motor.
When you get some really windy days, sometimes that can affect that. But, it's better than, maybe not having an idea. The other thing is if you can find weed lines. So let's say that you had no technology with you at all. If you can kind of, with as much visibility as the water is offering, find out where the weeds are that you can see and how quickly they drop off. If it's a very gradual bottom, it drops off slower. Find some of those harder edges where it drops off a little bit quicker, because if you can again go to a casting and retrieving type situation where you're throwing your bait out there and letting it kind of slowly sink through, that will help you find where those fish are sitting. And because fish will always sit right off weed edges. They're looking for that forage, and that's gonna at least get you somewhere.
Yep.
Throw a bobber out there.
Yeah, absolutely. You love bobbers.
Josh is joking because like 2 years ago I used nothing but bobbers, and then like in this last year I've like hated bobbers. So it's like, who knows what happened? Just one ice season in between. Who knows? So with that, we have a whole summer still kind of ahead of us because fall is lovely and it's great fishing. But the thing about fall fishing is that you get sometimes super, super hot days like it is summer, and then you get those really cool nights. So the nice thing about that is there is some really cool gear out here with Striker that we're going to highlight a little bit. And then after that, we're going to talk a little bit about, fishing for ice season. So what it means when people say that they are, in their open water and marking spots for ice. So we'll get back to that a little bit, but let's show you. You even brought a few of these shirts here. Can I take some of these out?
Grab them out. Have them on the back. Bye, Steve. Have a good night.
What we have here is, I guess, one of my favorites. So when we're looking at different gear, gosh, I almost wore this tonight in the black and the gray, but I knew that we'd have it. Low Tide hoodies. These are really, really great when we're looking at going into fall because love that pattern. And especially if fish are looking up, it helps break up that water line. I'll show you kind of that sleeve again here. That's pretty awesome. But it's a really great shirt for those really hot days, lets you breathe. But then at night, it doesn't get so super cold. You're able to, wear that as an all day shirt. So that's certainly one of my favorites.
Well, and the thing is that I'm a huge hood wearer. It's nice to be able to have hoodies all year round, but in the summer I actually do use my hood almost every time we go out fishing. It keeps my ears from getting burnt, and I hate burning my ears. And it's awesome when all I have to do, I have a little thing of sunblock that's about this big. It looks like a deodorant stick, and I just wipe it like that on my nose, and that's all the sunblock I have to put on because I have this lovely outer layer here.
This beard, yeah, isn't that funny? The other thing though, stain resistant. So like if you're
her favorite.
Well, it is my favorite because I have. Well, do you have even one here?
Yeah,
no, because it's that's the low tide hoodie,
Yep.
and so here's the high tide hoodie. This is actually from 1 year previous. This is a great, fabulous shirt. Also comes with a neck gaiter, but it's removable with these little awesome buttons here. And so we just happen to have this removed. But in this case, oh yeah, finger holes.
Yeah, the finger holes for your thumbs.
Yep.
Which is nice.
But I have to admit, I have a high tide hoodie from the previous year, and honestly, I have stains on it. It's a fishing shirt, and it's awesome. But I like those low tide hoodies because they're super light material, and they don't stain. They stay clean. So some really, really super great options here. And for men and women, it's amazing. Josh and I will wear both, high tides, low tides, and they're just really great shirts for both of us. So. Goose here is hitting us with a little bit more fish talk. Seems like the last couple of weeks, the crappies want baits trolled and aren't hitting jigging, which is my favorite way to catch them. So don't be afraid to switch it up. Oh, Goose, we should switch places because I feel like the opposite. Last couple of weeks, I feel like the fish have really, really been wanting jigging technique over deeper brush. And I feel like we totally passed by our trolling season. And I'm a little bit sad about that.
I don't think so. I think we have some to come. I just think that, the weather's been kind of goofy by us, and the way that the weather's lined up with our weekends, I think, is also goofy. So I think we got some good trolling left in yet for this season.
And we were talking about finding those weed lines. So that if that is something that you're doing and you have a trolling motor, that's exactly where we're at, is finding those weed lines, going just off the edge of them. If you don't quite want your jig dragging on those weeds and catching, but whatever you can do right next to or right above those different weed lines. And what are we doing? 0.6 to 1.0 or?
Yeah, I mean, I try to keep it about 0.7 to 1.3, somewhere depending on how hard they're hitting. I'll start out slow, and if we catch fish, I'll keep increasing it. And sometimes this is what happens, is if you start out slow and you'll get some bites, you might catch some smaller fish, but it's worth going over that spot once or twice at faster speeds because you might pick up bigger fish going faster. And it might be the opposite. If you start out fast, you might pick out some of the smaller fish. They're a little bit more aggressive, but if you give it time to come past, there's some of those big fish that are hiding in the little weed holes. They'll come out and grab that slower bait. So just switch up your speeds a little bit, but it is important. They like crappies and bluegills, like that constant like trolling, straight trolling.
Well, and that's a really great point. I think we were actually just touching on that a little bit. We talked with Joel Nelson a few weeks back, and he was talking about, especially when you have other people in the boat, if you are kind of like ripping your jig as you're trolling it, or you're trying to do like some funny side pattern to get attention, you might get that attention, but you might get a lot less bites, because especially when you think of panfish, crappies, bluegills, I guess mostly crappies here, you think of a fish, they can see in front of them, but their eyes are kind of on the side of their face, and so they have to kind of hone in and be able to track a bait before they can grab it. So if you're doing something like a constant swipe, you're going to want to make it something that's a very, very predictable or maybe slow pattern, or nothing at all. Like Josh is saying, that consistent troll of a bait is something that's very, very trackable for a fish. And I think that's why so many people go to twist tails. It gives it that crazy action that we feel like the bait needs, when in all reality, I don't know if the fish I don't know if it sees the right color going by, it might eat it.
Glenn's hitting a good point here. So sometimes in the out turn, when you're making your turn to go back and pass over the fish, you'll get a little bit more speed out of your outside rods, and those will get hit first versus your slower speeds when they drop. It can be the opposite too. When those baits get to the point and then they start sinking, it might be hitting a spot where your baits aren't low enough. And so when they slow down and they sink, then the fish will come hit it. So those are good points. And another thing I would like to bring up with the trolling is that on one particular lake we fish, the fish set up always facing one direction. And we know that because you have to troll over them one direction, you'll get a dozen bites. And then if you troll over the other way, you won't get anything. But then you turn around and you troll over one way and they'll get bites. They set up like that because that's predominantly where they can see the bait and where the bait is coming from. And so just know, if you're trolling a line, maybe try trolling it the other way if it looks really good.
And one of the ways that Josh and I will go about that, and I got to give the credit to Josh because he's the navigator, but, if you choose, a certain depth line right at the weed edges, 10, 12 feet, whatever it is, and you start going along and you choose your speed, and then you come back, don't be afraid to go a little bit deeper and a little bit faster, mix those things up kind of at the same time, because fish will kind of track that down. And a lot of times when you think of, especially the summer clouds of fish, they are sometimes moving around and cruising. And if you are also kind of moving around, hopefully you'll get that opportunity to run it right into them.
Absolutely.
And not to pass us by, Glenn, I also do like your point, because that's something that's really funny. When people turn around and, that seems when the fish hit, and they always joke, oh, of course the fish will hit because we're about to turn around. All the fish are that way, but really take that moment, like Glenn is saying, and, analyze, is it because the bait is falling deeper, like you're saying? Is it because, oh, my bait swung out a little bit deeper, as the boat turned? What did happen in those moments? Because it might not be so coincidental as you're joking about.
And Goose is reiterating the point about, letting the fish track, because it's a depth perception thing. Walleyes, pike, muskie, bass, they have forward facing eyes. It's on kind of on the top and forward facing, where the prey fish, it's on the outside. So they kind of have to look with one side of their face. And to be able to do that on a moving target, they kind of have to go alongside of it, and then they swipe this way, so, Goose recognizes it, but sometimes he might get more bites on the reaction, you just never know.
You just never know. You just got it. Well, and don't come back to me and says, I caught fish when I was calling you said I never would. Because that sometimes does happen. We talk all the times. fish will often strike a bait when it's something new to them. You know, if you can even just give them something that they haven't seen before, that might strike up enough, you know, interest in them to go for a bite. So, you know, we're giving you generally what works for us, but if you go out there and you try something that's different and it still works, then just come and tell me because I'm interested.
She'll write it in her notebook. So just be
don't
careful.
Actually have a notebook.
Yeah, she's lying.
Okay, so with that, you know, we were kind of talking about with winter, I was going to say coming up, it's not really yet, but kind of, you know, people will say, you know, I only summer fish, I'm in the boat looking for my winter spot. So what does that mean when people are just summer fishing for winter?
Oh, I mean, that's what I do as soon as I bring the boat out. You know, I'm summer fishing for winter, and what that means is I'm using my electronics, I'm marking spots, I'm mapping lakes to the chagrin of Emily, and you know, I'm just taking note of any weed line changes or any changes in the lake itself. You know, if somebody clears out a shoreline or if this or that, you know, you mark that stuff down, either catalog it in your Google Photos. That's one of my favorite things to do. You know, mark it with your electronics on your boat. You know, we like to run the Humminbird stuff because we can use it for ice and for summertime. So I can move that stuff over. And the maps help a lot because we can track those changes. Some of the lakes that we fish have floating mats of vegetation. So not just the Chippewa flowage, but we have other places that the shoreline changes where the cattails will be out, you know, over 12 feet of water
in one spot.
And then the next year they'll be all pushed over to the other shoreline, and that side will change. And so that's kind of the stuff that I do all summer just to prepare for ice fishing.
So I'm going to break down a few of the things that you said there because there was a lot. So first of all, when we go out looking for ice season, scouting for ice, we are looking for, you know, the different. Let's say that we find a muddy bottom that we know that there's going to be like red worms, you know, little bloodworms around. Note that to yourself because all kinds of little panfish love to go and eat that. Let's say that you find a rock point. Let's say that you find cribs. You know, those different things that are out of the ordinary that you want to mark down. So if you are in a boat, if you have a graph, sometimes there's a button that's really easy to push. You mark that. And if you have the capability to use your graph or your electronics from open water to ice, then that is great. And then you don't need this conversation. But there's a lot of people out there that maybe don't have that luxury. So the other ways that we do that is a few. And Josh, you pointed out, you know, Navionics is out there. You can go and you can make your marks. One of my favorites is you can go to even your own Google Maps, put your points on your Google Maps, and you don't even have to share that with anybody. That can be your own private information. But the other thing that Josh pointed out, and I'm kind of smirking because I always forget about this. Well, sometimes I'm the one who remembers it, I guess. But let's say that you are out on an ice fishing trip or something, and you are having like fabulous luck, and then it dies off. And then you hop spots. You're like, I'm going to go back to that one spot again. Where was that? So the crazy thing about Google Photos, gosh, I almost wonder if I should show you. That might be hard on my phone here. But if you click on the photo and then kind of like pull it up on your screen, like I'm talking my mobile device, one of the things you can see, like maybe if it's a motion photo, choose your photo. It's a little reel there. Underneath that, there might be even a little map. And you can search that map by the picture locations. And you can scroll right on into lakes. You can scroll into different areas. But even look at really cool things like the past history will kind of group the photos together. And so you can see the trends of where you're catching fish. So especially in a bigger body of water, like if you want to look along shorelines or something, your pictures might start to group up and help you look for different places to fish in the future.
Well, and this is something we might have to do a video in and of itself on, just because
it's kind of crazy to use that feature. Yeah,
you don't want to. You want to make sure that your settings are correct on your photos, so that you're not there, because you can go in and get GPS data off the photos if your settings aren't correct and you're still sharing your photos. We have our settings set correctly so that that doesn't happen, but location is saved within our Google Photos account.
Mm-hmm.
And one really cool feature they have is they have a heat map. So they'll take all of your picture locations and it'll show up on a map. You know, if you pull up the lake and you zoom into the lake,
Mm-hmm.
it'll show your hot spots literally on your lake. It won't show up. It'll just be glary because of your.
I'm going to try it. Try it. We'll see.
You know, so that's a really cool feature. And so we might just have to.
Oh, shoot. I was going to show you. It's a picture of a bluegill, and then the map is right underneath. None of you
it's
can
just
tell
a white
that.
screen, guys.
It's just a white.
I'm telling you,
really not.
Yeah, look at it's white.
This is actually a map now.
No,
so if you could,
it's white.
if you could see more than white, you could probably see my fishing secrets right now. It even had the name of the lake. Sorry, next time, guys.
Okay, so Glenn had a question here. Do you find drilling holes spooks crappies? He asks because he has great success giving recently drilled holes an hour before he fishes them. So
where are you fishing that your holes don't refreeze that quick?
No, but that's a great point, Glenn. So here's something that I like to do. So we'll put out one of our spots. So we fish the We'll fish. We fish it. It's a popular spot.
It's a really popular spot.
Lots of people fish there. And so one thing we do is we go and we drill holes at all of our fishing spots.
It's one of the bayous on the Wolf River. It is right along a highway system, and there's a parking lot like literally right there. So if you're local, you probably know where I'm talking about. And if you're not local and you want to come, then hit me up and I'll take you anyways.
Yeah. But I mean, we'll go pre-drill our holes, and once we have our holes pre-drilled, we'll go back and we'll start at the beginning where we first started drilling, and we'll work our way through. And that, you know, that's one thing that does help the fishing a lot. The other thing for me that's helped last year was I decreased my hole size and I went to a 6-inch hole. And I think we're using shaver blades with the razor augers.
Oh yeah.
And that doesn't make nearly as much noise as a chipper blade or that that kind of hybrid blade.
Oh sure.
And then
making snow cones out there.
Right. And two, that's the smaller hole is less surface area for an auger and it's less work, and so it's very quick. So my Razor Scout is just like vroom, vroom, even in 12, 14 inches of ice, it makes it really quick and really quiet. The other thing is I have 2 different pairs of cleats. I was going to bring this up. Yak Tracks, the Diamond Grips, and that's Bear Ice. Those are my Bear Ice cleats. And I have the Catulas, and those are like the bumpy, hard snowpack
spikes. Yeah.
Yep, that's the hardest snowpack cleats. And the reason I use both those is the same reason that I like to use the smaller auger. It's quiet. The difference in the.
And that's exactly what I was going to bring up as one of the factors there is drilling holes is almost not a huge factor to me when there's 50 other people running around drilling holes and setting tip ups and looking for pike, and then kids running and playing and sliding through slush if there is any, whatever. There's some places around us that are literally so busy as far as fishing that, sometimes during the day that doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
But I would also urge you, especially in those places, to try to stay after dark when people are leaving. You might not get a perfect night bite everywhere, but the thing that you might find is that those fish are sensitive to those noises in general. So, you might find you catch a few fish during the day, but then all of a sudden everyone goes home, and then those last 20 minutes before dark, you catch more fish than the entire day.
Yeah, right. Jacob, you got a question here about those cleats. If I could use one, well, you know what, man? I used my Catulas for 2 or 3 years. Emily had a pair of the Diamond Grip Yak Tracks, so I bought myself a pair because I liked how quiet those were. Problem one with the Catulas is it's hard on your back and your legs to stand on those spikes because you're elevated. And so you got to
really stretch them around your shoes.
Yeah, and
so
it's
sit down and do it.
It's something that if I do use them, it's towards the middle of the season, and I leave them on my boots
when there's snow on there, especially. Yeah.
But
In
don't
any
get
other situation, though, I would say those diamond grips are the better option.
Yeah,
because they're
so
quiet, they're easier to walk on. Go ahead.
well, what I was gonna say is they get caked up with slush.
They can.
Yeah, so that
But then I
that's
take them
what.
off because I don't need them.
Okay, well, you can see where Emily lies.
I only have the diamond grips. I do just fine. I love them.
Yeah, she will never try anything else, even if it is better.
I don't know.
Jeez.
I don't ever slip, anyways.
That's a lie. Ask Adam Kittleson. He watched you fly right onto your.
Oh yeah, I was not even wearing. We were just walking around like I was not even wearing cleats.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. So now you started a cleat debate in the house. We'll be talking about this all evening now.
No, we won't. Oh my gosh. But with ice season, well, I keep saying almost coming up, we are out there. We are still looking on the lakes for the different things, the different cribs, different, if there's deep structure, whatever, we're out there looking for that. So we kind of stumbled upon this because we were talking about looking for all of that. And, remember to use your Google Photos or your Google Maps or your different things that are the tools that are right there on your phone that are easy to use.
So I just want to go back to one comment we had early in the show. Let me see if I can find it here. Our buddy Tony here said he hasn't been out in the boat for 2 weeks, but he pulled the ice house out. And, this is a good time of year to do that. Make sure that it's not wrecked, or if you need to do any repairs. It's a good time of year to start charging your batteries. Think about those batteries. Get those amp batteries out, put them on the charger, get them ready to go.
Well, the lithium ones, I don't think you actually have to worry about so much, but some of those other ones, you charge a few times a year.
You just need to check.
You got to check.
You just need to check. So get some, right, Tony, no mouse damage, but check your batteries, make sure your blades are sharp on your auger, because if you do it now, you're not going to be competing with everybody else that's trying to do it right when ice hits.
Well, and actually, that's a really great point, because getting out your ice stuff, first of all, it's kind of fun to do. Make sure that you didn't leave any of your tackle behind, that you put it away with ice that you could still use for open water. Sometimes there's more there that you can use than you realize. But also start taking stock in the things that you need for the coming year, because we talked to Sarah and Tyler Trampy last week, and they hinted about some awesome new stuff coming out for ice season.
Yep.
And we happened to notice that there was things on the website already.
Yeah.
So if you have not checked that out, I would say.
Can we pull that up? I think we can pull it up.
Can we? I mean, I was just going to send people there, but.
I mean, why can't we?
I'm looking at, we have a second screen here. Yeah. I don't know if Josh is going to show it to you, or if he's just going to look here himself.
Well, do you guys want to see it? I guess
they probably don't want to see it.
You don't want to see
it. Nobody likes new stuff.
Well, if you don't want to see it, you can go to the website. No, I'm kidding. We'll throw it up there. Here, let's see. Let's try this. Share. Boom. Look at that. So what are we talking about here? Well, this new Predator jacket this year. Look at that. And ooh, black frost, burgundy.
And actually, I didn't totally intend to go through all of this, because I mean, this is hot off the presses, people. So there's a lot of people that don't know that this is here. But before you go on, first of all, one of the things I was like waiting, I was like having Josh stop waiting. The thing that we've been talking about for so long, if you've been to shows, if you've been to expos, the options for women as far as gear has always been, well, what it was. There's a lot of women, a lot of real women. There's a lot of great women that are thin and they fit into that standard sizing. And then there's a lot of people that just don't. And there's nothing more disappointing than coming to a booth, an expo, a store, a show, whatever it is, to come and try on potential new gear and then be disappointed that it does not fit. So really quick before we move on, can you click on that sizing section?
Oh, I can.
So ladies gear that is not numbered. So some ladies love the numbers. Some ladies could not be more pleased to see non-numbered sizing. And beyond that, our sizing goes all the way up to a 4X now. So certainly women still have the option of, a lot of women love the Predator series. A lot of women love the Climates, whatever it is. But now women of all sizes can also love this new Stella line. So in this case, this is the jacket and there are bibs as well. And I know that there's a lot of people who could not be more excited about this. So if you are a woman out there right now, come and check this out. If you are a dude and have a woman in your life that loves fishing, show her this, because this is really super exciting.
Yeah, it is. Speaking of exciting, brand new suit line right here. Go watch the Trampy show. It was explained all kinds there, but there's some really cool technology. 80 grams, the jacket. That's it. That's all that it wears.
Is that what they said? That's really crazy.
Yeah. So I mean that, there's some really cool stuff. They still have the prisms if you like that. But like an update to the Predator. Last year they updated the hard water. This year they updated the Predator. Climate has a new color, so that's super cool. So go and check that out.
Cool. So I'm laughing to myself here because we totally intended to talk about the summer stuff. And we totally highlighted that. But the last thing that I will say is, there is some really great items that are in the sale and clearance section right now. So I even think that there's a few of, like, I'm wearing a graveyard right now in black. And I'm pretty sure that there's actually some graveyards.
All right. Clearance right here.
I'm pretty sure that there's even... Oh, there's some good stuff in this clearance section. Youth stuff. Hey, if you're looking for your kids, that's awesome. Keep scrolling down. Keep scrolling down. There it is. Blue, orange. I don't see black. Must be sold out because they're awesome, but so is the blue and the orange. And a lot of this sun gear, but especially these graveyards, I would say make a great base layer underneath the ice gear, because what you're looking for is something not cotton, because you're looking for super, super moisture wicking, something that's a really dry, comfortable fit. So when you are looking at your different gear right now, you can still be purchasing gear that can go with you all season long. So we talked about not putting your jigs away. Well, don't put your clothes away either.
Well, and I'll tell you right now, these t-shirts, don't overlook some of this stuff too. They're really soft. Mm-hmm. They're some of my favorite t-shirts.
Josh is literally wearing that shirt right now. I'm pointing at him. You can't see it because you're just looking at the other screen.
I'm wearing that one. But no, they're super soft. They're some of my favorite shirts. And these are great deals. Look at this one. That's
those hoodies are nice. Those double layers. If you've ever worn those hoodies,
stop shopping.
I know that's the problem. Is that's what's going to happen. So, I see some comments now. I had kind of zoned out looking at the website. Lots of other people are excited about the ice gear as well. So, really, really looking forward to getting to that later in the season. But with that, we are still at summer. So I was going to say, let us know how your season is going. Let's answer this before we go, though.
Yeah. So, regular Vexilar battery. What's the best temperature to store your battery and Vex in? Room temperature. Keep it in your basement. That's what I would say.
And as far as a non-lithium battery, I think it's best to keep them charged. If you can even do 2 charge cycles between the ice season, I've heard some people even doing more than that. Some people say once a month. I quite frankly, time passes so fast that if I can get 1 or 2 in, that's always like, better than
none. The non-lithium, right?
And on the non-lithium, because the lithium batteries are a lot more maintenance free.
There's a little bit of difference, especially in the amp batteries. They have some power management system in there, and the best thing for those and the best thing for those lithiums, even on like the electric auger, like our Razor, 50% stored at 50%. And then this time of year, towards the end of the month or end of September, you can charge it up, make sure it gets full charge. You're ready to go.
Good to go for ice season. So. Yep. Awesome. Yeah. It is amazing how fast time flies. Thanks for coming and hanging out with us tonight. Thanks for all of your questions or comments or tips or whatever stories along the way. It's been great.
It's been fun.
It has, yeah. If you guys have specific, striker pros that you're dying to hear from, come and drop that in the comments because we would love to line them up and talk to them as well. Otherwise, if you have favorite fish or species or tactics or whatever that you would like to hear about, let us know that as well because we will try to get that on so you can hear about that and come and chat with us as well. So
absolutely.
Other than that, thank you for taking your time to be here. And we are looking forward to seeing you guys on next week's episode of Hook, Line, and Striker.
Night, everybody.